What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Let's Talk Horror channel and welcome to Dissected. This is my little sort of side series for Let's Talk Horror where I get the opportunity, the chance to speak to the amazing people that create the horror that we see. It doesn't matter how that is, whether it's directing, whether it's performance, whether it's sound. I want to speak to these people. Like I said to my guest before I came on, this is a little bit selfish of me, this new show Dissected, because it's sort of for me. Because outside of all of this, and as we all know, if you know Let's Talk Horror, you know that acting, filmmaking, that's what I want to do with my life, and always has been since I was a wee little lad. But guess what? It's never really bloody happened. So now I might as well sit here while I've got the opportunity and have a chat with other people and talk about the process of what they've created and what, as I said, the horrors that we see. So on this episode of Dissected, I have Kyle and I have Erin with me. They are the creators. I'm gonna get you to tell me better than what I know everything that you do. But you are part of the creation process of what is ZombiCon Volume 1. Hello, Kyle. Hello, Erin. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. That was a fantastic intro.
Yes, thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you. We're pumped to be here.
I did almost, like I said before, I almost passed out halfway doing that. But that's it. So
well, your acting is great. You couldn't tell at all.
Oh, good. That's good. In regards to ZombieCon, as I said, you guys will tell everybody a lot better than what I can. What is ZombieCon Volume 1?
So ZombieCon Volume 1 is a horror comedy, but it's also got action and adventure, a little bit of shades of everything. And it's about 4 cosplaying best friends, the Rockets, who accidentally trigger an apocalypse in which only the assholes of the world turn into zombies. They're stuck in LA, so naturally LA is crumbling. It's everywhere. A mess. It's a and they find out that one of their loved ones across town actually is in trouble. And so they have to decide, do we stay in? Do we shut down, hunker down with all of our cosplay stuff and supplies? Or do we don our cosplay capes, grab our katanas, head out and go save Mama Bear? I think you know which one they do.
Absolutely. I mean, if that doesn't make you want to watch a movie, then there's no helping anyone really in this world anymore. But yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happens within the movie. What I'd like to know is, so obviously I'll go through a few questions with yourselves, and this one is a sort of a bit of a two-parter. What I always like to know is, like, when did the journey all start? So the first part of the question is, let's start with the journey of ZombieCon Volume 1. Where did the journey with that all sort of start?
So we had done a number of short films, a number of web series, kind of were cutting our teeth on that. We had done a misguided venture, which was kind of like a competitor to YouTube, but we didn't have any money to make it. But we did make like a website, and we did these web series for it to try to get people interested in it. And this was like back in 2015, so streaming services were kind of a new thing. And we were kind of taking our shot at that, and we didn't really know what we were doing with advertising, marketing, how to get the word out, and all of the people we knew were like, well, you should do, a feature film, because no one's going to respect these web series things. Like, this internet stuff is a novelty. No one's going to be doing this, which is hilarious in retrospection.
Yeah, little did we know.
That's right. And so we're like, okay, yeah, I mean, let's try to do a feature. I mean, we did, a sci-fi web series. We did a web series with a bunch of kids that was like kind of a sing-along. We had done all these short films. I was like, that all would equal more than a movie. I'm sure it's no different. we could definitely handle this. So we started kind of poking around the ideas of like what to go for in horror. Obviously, low budget, we knew it was going to be. Seemed like the obvious go-to. And then zombies in that vein. For me, it was going to be my directorial debut. And I thought, I mean, that zombie movies and directorial debuts kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So it felt like the obvious choice. And the cosplay element came in after I was visiting my brother down in Florida. He collects movie props. He's got, his house is like a museum. And I was just kind of hanging out, and, we're probably drinking a little bit, and I was looking at the wall, and I just see this Captain America shield, and started looking around at all the other stuff, and I'm like, whoa, it would be really cool to like be here during a zombie apocalypse and have all this stuff to like use as weapons and protection. Like, that shield would come in handy. that Predator mask would come in handy. There's like, the Hellboy hand over there that you can wear. That would come in handy. And so as we're going through this, I was like, well, who would have all of this kind of memorabilia other than my brother or a movie prop collector? And I'm like, well, I'm a cosplayer. I've got a lot of this stuff. I was a cosplayer. I've never seen cosplayers in a movie.
Yeah.
And that was just the genesis, and it snowballed from there. And,
That's
I
when
think
it
maybe
clicked.
3 months later. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And 3 months later, we had the script, and we had an Indiegogo campaign to try to raise funds. We did okay with it, but kind of at the end of the Indiegogo campaign, someone came on board, a private investor, and they were like, you guys put a ton of effort into this. They liked what we'd done in the past. They're like, what do you need to, make this thing happen? And, my pie in the sky number for Indiegogo was $60,000. And, which is a laughably small amount for a feature film. But to us, it was like, might as well have been like $6 million. Like that was like more money than we've ever had to work on a project. Everything prior to this was like, the biggest budget was the sci-fi one. It might have been like $1,000. So this was huge. And then we got started rolling, and that's basically the genesis, the origin story of the film.
Well, before I get into the second part, which won't probably take as long for you guys, because you'll just be like, oh yeah, this is exactly how it happened. But what I like and what I love about that, and it's a big reason as to why I'm doing this, is because it's like an insider sort of look at the process of what it is. And what's insane to me is that the key word is that this movie is a feature film. And the fact that you managed to make a feature film on around, like you said, what was it, about $60,000, was it? I mean, that's wild, because there's two great things to come of that. One, it goes to show that you can do it, right? And that's really inspiring thing. Because like I said, quite selfishly, this is like stuff for me doing these interviews and stuff like that. And hopefully other people enjoy it as well. But it's very inspiring because, you hear all these big numbers and you hear all these people, that are getting whatever they get to make these movies. But a lot of the time as well, a lot of people are in their brain. And I know I'm the same. You start with short movies and you keep making short movies and you work your way through that. But then the transition of you going, oh, okay, well, where's my next step to go to a feature film? And that's where you start getting like a lot of concerns when it comes to the budgetary constraints and so on. And that's why I really enjoy doing this sort of series. And the last person I had on as well was the same situation, because you have a very small budget. And what's great about that, as I said, is one thing, it's incredibly inspiring. So what you did, the fact that you created a feature film is incredible. So well done for doing that on such a small budget, and to create what you did with the movie and what you see in the movie for $60,000 is incredible. So well done for that. But also, what's great about it is the fact that by having a smaller budget, and this is why I love, this show is predominantly going to be speaking to people who have no budget or to low budget, because it forces creativity. And that's what is so integral to cinema, and especially horror. Because right now, especially with horror, we might have some pretty decent films, but quite honestly, a lot of the stuff that comes out at the moment just feels the same. And because a lot of these people now are getting more and more of what they want, and it's forcing creativity to like an all-time low. So you'll get some things where you're like, oh, okay, like they could have done this and they could have done that. But because they didn't have to, because they don't get the money to do it, they get the money to do it. That's where it sucks a little bit. And that's why independent horror, independent cinema is so integral, because it forces creativity. So when you said that, you got about 60,000 to do this movie, that is an insanely low number to do what you guys achieved in this movie. So, well, absolutely bloody well done, because you deserve it, and I'm looking forward to talking about a few more bits about what happens in the movie. I just went on an absolute tangent then about the state of horror cinema. I apologize.
No, I'm totally in agreement on problems. You can see them as problems on a movie set, but they're always going to be problems, no matter how much you storyboard or plan or anything.
Right.
You're going to get hit in the side of the head with something that you didn't expect. And you've got two choices at that kind of juncture. You can either say, this is a problem, rip your hair out, go full meltdown mode, or you could do what I think is the more productive option, which is, look, let's find a creative solution. Making a movie, it's a creative endeavor to begin with. And so I feel like our job as artists and anyone who's involved with filmmaking at any level, it's kind of like the universe tasking you with finding a solution. It's like, you want to be in the creative industry? Find a creative solution to the problem.
Creative,
and I think what you said had great parallels also with just CGI and big budget movies, where we were talking about Jaws before we started recording.
Yeah.
And notably, I mean, one of the biggest movie faux pas, right? The shark not working.
Yeah, it just
which
didn't work.
changed the entire script, changed the entire film. And we all got one of the best films ever made because of that mistake and because of them needing to find, or Steven needing to find, creative solutions to overcoming that problem. Today, I feel like with CG, you have a...
We'll be back.
Okay.
We'll be back.
She's learning to talk, so this is... Today with CG, you have a problem, and I feel like so often the quick solution is, well, how much more does it cost now? So I'm assuming for these large budgets, but, let's just, how much more does it cost to fix the shark and just do it all CG? And then you would have the shark all over the place. It would have been a totally different movie. And it's eliminating those creative solutions. And I think that the movies are suffering because, like you said, if you can do anything, then you're not going to find out what you need to do when your back's basically up against the wall. So
yeah, you're right. And I remember the first time that I realized how difficult it was going to be to make a movie, bearing in mind all I was making was my first short movie. But it was literally, I picked up the camera, I filmed something, and I thought all of it was good, and all of it was 3 minutes. Pretty much none of it was good, and I cut it down to 20-something seconds. And then I was like, shit, filmmaking is really difficult, because you think you've got something that, you're going to create something, and you're like, I could make like an hour out of this. And before you know it, you've got like 6 minutes, and then you're like, oh shit. And like I'm saying, it really does then start forcing the creative side of you, not just, but every aspect, like with yourself. So you wrote the movie as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So I wrote, and I think Erin would usually, parrot me on this, but I created the story and the characters, and did a large portion of the writing, but I wrote with Erin and Manny Luke, who plays Rocket in the film. And, we were a production team. We had worked on a number of other things. Manny came into the production company like a year prior to us making this film and he started as an intern, then became a partner in the production company. So we were really good at working together, and we had basically a little bounce board sessions where we would go through things, and we would each have assignments on what to write. And I just was so I could see the whole movie in my head. So I'd go off to write, and I would just write into their assignments, and I'd be like, well, but yeah, we'll do this. And I've already done that. And so we were just kind of all over the place. So it was a collaborative effort, a little bit of me just getting carried away with my own creativity and being like, oh yeah, but I want to see them do this.
Yeah.
So
what's wild as well is that what you just said there as well is it's that filmmaker brain, right, where it's all up here and it's about trying to get it from out here to paper, to the screen, to other people. That is such a difficult thing. And because you just, as I said, I'm one of those people, I find it very difficult to storyboard and stuff like that, because in my head, everything that I do, everything that I do outside of what's up here is very basic when it comes to trying to create something, because I know that it's all up here, but other people don't know what's in here. So it's such a filmmaking, when when you birth it, like the idea is yours. If it's somebody else's idea, it's a bit different. But when the idea is yours and you have this idea, this very brief, small concept, and you start building upon it and you build upon it, and then you fall in love with that idea and that concept. And then you're like, right, I've got to make this, but also I've got to remember I cannot do this all on my own, which is the hardest thing. it's so difficult to get it, as I said, from up here to go to everyone else. And I think that is something that really, really shows in the movie, which I'll talk a little bit as well. But the other part of the question was, and you can just answer this really quickly if you want to, it was, where did the journey all start? With you personally, and obviously with Erin as well, but you can probably answer for her. But was it something, so was filmmaking something that you've always wanted to do? Was it something you just came across, or you were just like, you know what, I'd quite like to do this? Or was it like, no, I want to do this since I was a kid?
So my first memory of wanting to do filmmaking was like probably 5, sitting on the steps. And I don't know why I've got this vivid memory of exactly where I was in my like childhood home. And my next immediate thought was, well, I live in New Jersey. I don't know, of course the internet didn't exist back then, like really. I mean, I guess it did technically, but no one was using it. And my immediate thought after that was, well, I don't know anyone who makes movies. And the adage, at least back in the early 90s, was always like, well, you need to know someone out in Hollywood to like make it. It's not just good enough to be good. You've got to like have connections.
Yeah.
Like, I have no connections, 0. So I was probably too hard on myself, and I immediately, put that to the back of my mind and was like, well, that'll never happen. Fast forward to the end of college, and now, of course, the internet's become a big thing. I've been like, watching behind the scenes features my whole life. I'm like getting very nervous about like, I really don't want to do what I went to school for. I went to school for advertising and pre-law. And I was thinking about going to law school, and I was like, I don't want to do that. And I don't really want to go into advertising. It just wasn't calling to me. And I was like, well, if I don't take a chance to go to Hollywood right now, I feel like, I'm going to have to get a job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get like a couple month window here to see if I can make anything happen. And I took advantage of that, went out to Hollywood, and luckily one thing rolled into another thing. I think definitely thankful to big thank you to my parents for helping me and, get by when I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it just on my own, like especially in the beginning, because you're like, where do I live? What am I eating? What kind of job am I supposed to get? So they helped me to give me like a little bit of like, canned soup money, and just kind of getting to a place where I was like a little bit comfortable and able to like make a little money. We had started a business after we met, doing like demo reels and, just odds and ends for people and like headshots for actors. And that was able to kind of get us through the more difficult times. But that then rolled over into the short films, which then rolled over into the web series, which then rolled over into the feature film. So yeah, was part just brash tenacity, part stupidity and youthful energy. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And that's what's great is, once again, by doing that, it helps breathe and like, birth creativity, because you've lived through that process, things in like where you guys are in the UK. It's crazy, sort of like how different it all is, but also like the similarities. Like, for example, over here, all the actors pretty much that you see on the screen, that are British, we call them toffs over here. And basically what that means is that they're all like the rich little kids that have got rich parents who put them through acting school. And that's why they always speak like this, like Harry Potter and stuff like that, because that's pretty much what it is. So someone like me, who, grew up with zero money, like we were very, very poor growing up and stuff. I would have never been able to afford to go to acting school or filmmaking school and so on like that. So everything that I have had to learn has had to be, learned by me, and all the processes and all the technical side of it. But it means that by doing that, like, as I said, I feel like I can be more creative by doing that. I feel like, understanding the technical side of it more, and then falling in love with literally the fact that how a lens looks and how a lens makes you feel when you're watching something. And that's what I really love about it. And I think a lot of that gets lost on a lot of people that don't get to work as hard as like you have to get where you have to create like a movie. And I think as well, you know, if you didn't do that, would you be sitting here being able to create what you've created with ZombieCon Volume 1 with 60 grand? I don't know if you would have, because you really have to work and understand your craft as much as you possibly can, and you're constantly learning to create what you did with so little. So once again, well bloody done, but also it just works, you know, because you've worked so hard to get there.
I appreciate that. And I'm self-taught. I didn't, I think I looked at going to USC film school when I got out there, and I don't even know if they would have accepted me, but I saw the price and I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I think it was, I don't know what it was. I don't want to be, gauche, but it was like $200,000 or something for the graduate film school course. And then you had to also finance all of your films yourself. And I'm like,
you've just basically got to have rich parents for everything in the world, and then you're okay. You've got to be Dennis Quaid's son, and then you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, rich or connected. I mean, I'm sure they do scholarships for some folks. I don't think, it seemed like an impossibility. So YouTube was free, channels like Film Riot and stuff, where they were like, how do you build a light kit from Home Depot for $20?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'll go that route.
Thing. Like literally the amount of something that you mentioned earlier as well, and YouTube is literally the greatest process for learning film without having to go to schools and stuff. Because and so when you said it made me smile earlier, the amount of hours that I have spent throughout my life and still to this day watching behind the scenes, bonus footage and making ofs and everything, because you're sitting there and you're hoping that you can figure something out, or be like, oh, I can see I know what lens they use to create this shot. And, and that's how you start learning, anamorphic lenses. This is what they are, and this is what they do. And this is why Steven Spielberg movies look like the greatest things that have ever, because he just uses an anamorphic lens and you're like, oh, wow. But then it's not just about the lens, it's about how you're using it. And the whole process of making a movie is absolutely wild. But yeah, I think it gets a lot. I think especially today with modern cinema, it is the technical side of it is definitely lost a lot more, because like I said, people are getting more. So the technical side of it, I miss how films used to look, that's my problem. I think I'm just an old man that get miserable because I miss how films used to look. And how digital has really changed the way that movies look, but also digital is incredible because the accessibility now for anyone to make a movie with an iPhone, because of the advancement in digital technology and stuff, is incredible. But you've got to know how to use it, and that's a big part of it. So, and luckily with ZombieCon Volume 1, you bloody know how to use it. So there we go.
Thank you.
So you said a little bit. So I've got a little bit about production wise. So you said that obviously the ridiculously low amount of money that you got, which obviously for you guys probably felt like a fortune, but to create a movie is nothing really. Which is once again a credit for what you did. It was filmed in LA, did you say, or is it in LA? Yeah. So was there any? Obviously, I don't really know LA. I don't even know outside of my own town, really. But were there any issues or challenges that came with filming in LA for an independent movie?
Really the expenses, right? You've got to have insurance. You've got to pull permits. You have to work through Film LA. You don't have the benefit of being a sexy movie production. Like if we were in the, different part of the country, you say we're filming a movie, especially back then, which was still rarer to do on a lower budget. Now I think it's become much more common for people all over the place to film movies, which has been fantastic. But you could probably walk into a store and be like, hey, I'm filming a movie. Can I use your store for a couple hours? And someone would be like, oh, my store is going to be in the movie? That's great. In LA, you say, hey, I want to use your place to film a movie. They're like, money.
Yeah,
money.
Ka-ching, that's it.
And I know one of the biggest challenges we faced was the locations we rented. One of them, which was great, it's a place we cut up. We filmed the rooftop scene there. Hello, sweetheart. We filmed the alleyway scene. We filmed the tunnel scenes all at the same building. But I remember one day, and I guess this was in our contract, they were touring other people through the middle of the set, like on the other side of the set. Like I'm in the middle of shooting a scene with the actors, they're talking, and I just hear, so this is where you could shoot this part of your music video, and this is where you could shoot this. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
You wanted to have a James Cameron moment there.
Yeah. And so like, I had to go over there. Like, we're literally in the middle of shooting. Like, I can't, like,
Yeah,
lovely to have you
they
guys.
Have no idea what they ruined and how long it's going to take to get it all sorted again.
So stuff like that. And then I know we had the liquor store scene was originally set to film at a bar. We had done all the paperwork, and 2 days prior, they pulled the location from us. I got a call from the bar owner. You guys are out. We got a bigger, deal from another production person. They're like, sue us if you want to. And I was like, we've got paperwork. You're like, yeah, sue us. And I was like, I will. And I hung up. I'm like, Erin, can we sue them? Do we know any lawyers? Like, no, we don't have the money to sue anyone.
And that's the problem,
now, luckily,
isn't it? Yeah.
Now that I will say, there was a cherry on top of that, where the bigger production that kicked us out, I got a call from, one of the assistant directors or whoever was managing, maybe an assistant producer. And they said, hey, we took your location. We're sorry about that. They were probably more worried about the fact that we had a contract than the actual location was. And they were like, what is it going to cost to, make sure that we get this location clear and free, and like there won't be any problems. And I looked at Erin, I was like, I don't know. And I was like, $800. Like, guy almost laughed at me on the phone. He's like, yeah, we give you $800. And I was like, oh, I should have asked for more.
Yeah, that's one of those things.
It was a really great learning lesson.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have thrown out that first
Anytime
number.
anyone from Hollywood asks you how much, start with if it's a big production, start with a ludicrously high number, like $10,000.
Yeah,
you really threw a hammer and a wrench into our entire schedule here. You set us back multiple days. We're needing to even recast. I don't even know how to describe how much money you've cost us. Just start there.
Yeah, that's it.
She's better at negotiating than I am. I'm like, I see something for a price and I'm like, okay, I'll buy it for this price. That sounds great. She will haggle and be like, well, I don't know. There's a thread out of this shirt right here. I don't know if I want to pay full price.
My dad raised me. One of his pastimes was going to garage sales, and he loved to take me along. And they were so much better back in the day. But it was a fun thing that I learned to haggle at, and so much so that when I was a kid even, and I would get to Chuck E. Cheese, and I'd have, the tickets and stuff, I would literally sit there and haggle with the poor teen who was behind the counter for why I should have this amount of tickets to get that toy back there. And I think one of the times I even said, I'll throw in my goodie bag from this party I was just at. And they were like, okay, it's fine.
So
I'll take your goodie bag.
You're a great person to have around if you want to save money.
I try.
Great producer.
I try.
Yeah, exactly. What a great producer sort of attribute to have. So with challenges, obviously, we've spoken a bit about that. So one thing, how long, before I move on, because like I said, I don't want to keep you forever, but how long was the process, the filming process? How long did it take, from sort of start to finish, or was it I assuming, being obviously, the lower end, budget and stuff, they take a lot longer. So was it a long process? Actually,
principal photography, we shot the vast majority of the film just in 28 days, 27 days.
Yeah.
And it was slam packed into July of 2016 in LA. Now, the difficult part came with post-production, because we didn't know what we didn't know until we had to learn what we needed to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the shooting actually was Kyle scheduled it all really well, and we were able to get almost everything in that month. It wasn't easy, but we were able to get it done.
Well, that's the hard part, isn't it? Is finding out what you've got until you get it back, and then you start editing, you start figuring it all out, and then you go, this works, this doesn't work. I wish I had this, but I have to make do with this.
Right.
Yeah. I think another big challenge too was, which was totally due to the lack of budget. I wanted to shoot it on nice glass, and we didn't really have the money. I didn't want to rent anything, because I wanted to buy whatever we were going to use, because I knew we'd be doing reshoots, and we had the main apartment was our apartment. So I knew that we had that location. So if we had to come back, a month later, 2 months later, we ended up reshooting little cut-ins up to 2, 3, 4 years later. But I wanted to have the same equipment. and I didn't want anything to go wrong with that. So I bought a piece of glass, which was like one of our big investments alongside the camera, and it was a Zeiss CP2 28 millimeter, which I think with the crop factor, because we shot on the C300 Mark II, and then we recorded out to like a Ninja Atmos to get 4K RAW, but the crop factor brought it up to like a 32 millimeter, and that was both challenging, which made for very creative shots because I wanted it to be kind of a little bit of, in your face wide angle. I like the way that we kind of got those distortions as we pushed into those close-ups.
Yeah.
But it made it a little bit more difficult for some of the wider shots because the sets we were working on were so small, right? We couldn't remove a wall or get behind something. And usually whatever was behind the camera didn't just include the physical obstacles of whatever that location was. It was also all of our equipment and boxes, because we didn't have it. We had a 5-person crew at like our best day. Some days it was just me. Some days it was just me and our sound guy, Chad Tolson, who this is his first time holding a boom pole too. And so he's running sound, and I've got the battery taped to my arm, and like we're running around setting lights, and like the actors are in full costume. So, you don't have time to be like, okay, well, there's a dedicated room for the equipment. We'll have a team of strong people haul it up here and then haul it away when you're done. So you're just like, okay, move those boxes over here. Okay, now we're going to shoot this way. Okay, great. Everyone get ready because we only have so many hours to do this.
Yeah.
Like that liquor store scene. We had a total of 3 hours to get all of that footage.
Blimey.
And that was in the morning of 4th of July. So we're also fighting the sun coming up because it was supposed to happen in the evening. So, we've got all these windows, and I'm like, I keep looking outside, like looking at my phone. What time is the sunrise? Okay, come on, we get one more shot of the bad guys coming in before the sun comes up.
Literally racing the sun, and we cut that scene down. There was a lot more dialogue originally we were filming too. So it just, it was every single day felt like its own battle, and in the big, war that was shooting this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the process of just doing anything, of just shooting, just filming, and getting something that, because ultimately as well, that the hardest part, or one of the hardest parts, is like you put it out there for everyone to see, and everybody's name is on it, and you don't want to let yourself down, you don't want to let your crew, and your cast, you don't want to let anybody down by creating something that, that you don't, that you can't love. You know what I mean? Like you can't, you want to have a lot of pride, and love in what you create. And if you can't do that, or if you don't do that, then then it's very difficult for your cast and crew for you to feel happy about that as well. So that's why it can be so difficult. And there was a couple of things you said there, and once again, it's another prime example of independent, low budget to no budget filmmaking, is how locations, what you can do, where you can go, what you can't do, everything, like you said about how like your apartment, and that was where you filmed a lot in. And it's what a lot of people, I think, don't really realize or understand, and obviously they're not going to if they don't understand the filmmaking process, but it's something for people to understand if they do, is that when you're never start thinking big, because those big things are the things that you can't do. It's trying to figure out, because your script, your idea, what you're writing, that there will always change, or will always have to change. And what's insane is how many times that a location can actually be a determining factor of where the story or the idea actually goes. Like when I did my first sort of short film, a lot of it was all short shot where I needed to, we had a bit where we went to like a forest sort of thing, but there was a guy walking around who was monitoring it like a park sort of ranger, and we had to choose our time and film. But then it was like, if I can't film here, I have to change the entirety of the movie. And that's what's insane, that once again, when you're working off such a low budget, the attention to detail in regards to like the concept, the idea, it changes so much to what you originally have planned to what you actually see. And then you still got to get to the end and go, this is still something that I want to put out and you know, I'm prideful of, and I think that it's something that people need to see. That's a big thing to sort of get over, I think, as a filmmaker. I don't know if that's the same with you. You might have just thought, I've fucking bossed this, and then everyone that's it.
I think you go through like I don't know, for at least on this production, went through like a, you know, a kaleidoscope of emotions, right, as you're filming it, because, you know, once you get certain, this is my first time like killing anything on camera and like having all the blood and stuff. So you start seeing some of that and you're like on cloud nine. You're like, this is great. And things are really clicking on set. And like, I love to be on set. I love to, like, that's my probably favorite part of like, once all the planning is done and everyone's there. And now I get to play with the actors and, you know, I don't know, you just got to be involved. It's like, you know, being a kid with your action figures, you know, and except they're all adults and they're all humans and they're, you know, and they're adding their own input and their own twist on things. And you're kind of navigating, okay, you're making sure, okay, this fits with the story, but I love that direction, go that way, or, you know, let's play that way. So you're just basically playing dress up.
Yeah.
And that to me is like where the quote unquote magic happens. Yeah. And now, of course, post-production it's totally different animal. And, you know, that adrenaline and that like kind of hype that you have on set fades away. You're watching the footage over and over and over and over again. And, you know, you're starting to like get in this. I mean, for me personally, I was doing the editing, I was doing the audio work, I was doing the color correcting. I was teaching myself how to do all of these things. I knew a little bit about some of the stuff, nothing really about post-production sound design or cleaning up dialogue and all that stuff. And that was the worst part of that process because I kept cutting the movie, coloring the movie. I thought, okay, this is looking great. It's sounding great. We could just use the production audio. Look, you could hear all the props. You don't need Foley. What do you need this? And yeah, it just didn't work as a feature film because so much of a feature film is the audio.
Yeah.
And so I'm like watching it. I'm like, oh my God, like I failed totally. This is horrible. And then you're going up, you're going down, and then you'll get something right. And you're like, it's working again. And then, you know, it goes down again. And so just, you know, being willing to ride that little ship. Again, it would be almost like crossing the Atlantic instead of like a giant ocean liner or a big Navy vessel. It's like on an independent budget, you're crossing the Atlantic on a dinghy.
Yeah,
and you are getting beat up and thrown around all the time. You just got to stick with it and keep paddling.
Yeah, because the thing is that we've all seen movies, you know, and the movies are the things that inspire us, right? So, and as people that want to create movies, like we know, we watch a movie and we sit there and we go, the sound design on this movie is incredible, right? And then you create your own movie and you go, I know that the sound design is so important, especially to horror. The sound design is so integral to it delivering an impact and making you feel something that, you know, that the filmmaker wants you to feel. So trying to do that on a very, very, you know, small budget, you know, and you don't have the studios, you don't have recording studios that get to go and do this and you can say, you do this and you do that. You know, once again, like you are doing everything on your own. You are figuring it out as you go. And once again, it's a testament to you know, to everything that you've done, you know, with the movie. But it is wild when you start thinking about the process and you think about the movies where you're like, the sound design is great or how incredible the cinematography is and stuff like that. And then you do genuinely have so much more admiration for those movies or those people because you start doing it and you realize, like you're saying, you film something and you might have a good mic or something like that. But then you get it back and then the sound is just, even though it might be all right, like audio wise, but it's just flat. And then you're like, oh, okay, like it sounds okay, but it's not giving an impact because it's all just one thing. So then you have to like, you know, go into it and say, well, I could add a punch sound here. Probably not like, you know, the Batman punch, but you know what I mean? You know, you can add this sound or this sound. And if it's somebody walking in here or the door and stuff, and you're adding these things and then the process in it just takes so long. But if you want to get something right and you want it to deliver the impact that you actually want it to, then you have to do these things, but you don't think of them straight away until you do it. And then you're like, oh shit, there's another thing I've got to learn.
Yeah, and now in the sound design, I mean, hats off to everyone. I think they reduced the amount of Academy Awards like a couple years back that sound, like post production sound, would get, which I think is, I'm not 100% sure of how that all ended up kind of panning out. But if that is true, that is awful because having done like all the sound myself on the final cut of the film, uh, it was brutal. It was fun and doing Foley and stuff. Like I kind of like created a sound booth in the guest bedroom, and it was pretty well insulated. But I'm down there with like 20 different, 30, 50, 60 different items,
Yeah.
like little tiny like plastic things, and trying to get all the sound effects right. And I don't know how deep in the woods to go because once you get started, you're like, well, how much of this is going to get lost? So,
Yeah.
I mean, there are layers of sound effects in the film that when I finally had to mix it, you don't hear because at certain points you have to have the music has got to peak over here, but it's still there, and that's what gives you that fullness of the entire sound. So even though the score is crescendoing or the actors are all screaming and it's like you're pushing that up or you're pushing a stabbing effect up, you still need to have all of those buried layers because subtonally it's still coming through, just it's not coming through like consciously. It's not something anyone would ever be like, oh yes, I heard the jingle of the zipper on that person's jacket behind them brutally stabbing
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
zombie. So
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
there, and if it wasn't there it'd be like, oh, something's missing.
Absolutely.
But you wouldn't know what it
and
was.
it just adds those, like, it's almost like with 3D movies, it's not just the visual, it's the audio as well. Like, audio to me has to feel 3D in a way, if that makes sense. You've got to have the layers upon the layers of the layers, because then, like you're saying, it adds that extra level of realism, but also it adds to the impact of what's happening. If you have somebody with a ninja sword pulling it out, you want that ninja sword sound, but you're going to have to add that ninja sword sound. You don't just get it from taking a ninja sword out. You've got to add it, and then that's what creates, those moments where people are like, "Wow, that sounded great." So, but once again, you work really hard, and then you end up with what you created with ZombieCon. So one of the things, obviously, I'll go through it, but one of the things that really, really stood out to me is the cast in it. So obviously with Erin being obviously a big part of the cast, that's one thing I do want to speak about, because obviously filmmaking is what I want to do, but acting as well. And one of the things that I pick up very often with modern day cinema is how characters, they all sort of blend into one. Like, unfortunately, you'll get a cast of 4 or 5 people now in a movie, and it's quite difficult to differentiate characters and people from each one. What I think was really good, and one of the things that stood out to me in this movie, is how great all the cast is and the chemistry that you all have. And I love that there's so many moments in this movie where you believe and you feel that friendship. I mean, I'm obviously, with it being the movie that it is, I'm assuming that a lot of you were all friends before creating the movie. But I do have to say that the cast are genuinely some of my favorite, sort of like a whole ensemble sort of cast is one of my favorite ones that I've seen for a while, because I really truly enjoy all the characters. I think yourself, obviously, I'm not just saying it because you're here, but I think you are really fantastic in it. Like with the bigger moments, with the smaller moments, I think you're delivering every aspect of what that character has to deliver in the movie. So obviously that's absolutely fantastic. I think is it? I'm going to say this wrong, but is it Javier? Is that right?
Javier.
Yeah,
Javier. So you were, yes.
So that's Christian who plays him. Is that right? So I really love his character in it as well, because I love the fact that he's like almost like he's. I mean, you can tell he's one of those guys that's probably pretty tough, right? But in the movie, he doesn't feel like that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference to his character than there normally goes. Like, there isn't somebody in the movie that makes me go, oh, okay, like, this is the tough guy and he's the one that's going to go around beating everyone. There's there's like
Right.
a softness to his character in it, and that means it means that you get good writing, but also you get the right performances as well. So I think everybody in this in this film did an incredible job performance wise. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, so you all sort of knew each other. Was there anybody that came on that you didn't know, or did you know all of the cast?
So the Rockets, and thank you for saying that. That's absolutely amazing. And I got to give credit to Kyle as well where it's due, because in creating these characters, other than Rocket's character, played by our friend Manny, who's like the nicest, calmest guy in the world, Rocket obviously is a little bit irate most of the time.
Yeah.
A lot of our characters have shades of us and our real life that was brought in. That helped. But our chemistry was real. I mean, we've been friends, the four Rockets, for years. Manny had come on a year before shooting, but he'd been working and a part of our production team, so we knew each other better than most friends who've known each other a decade. The only newbie, honestly, in the main cast was Nicole McCauley, who plays Mama Bear, and she's an acting veteran with insane credits to her name, Star Trek Voyager being one of them. But she actually was just brought on because she had worked with Christian, who plays Javier, and he said, I think that this actress I work with would be great for Mama Bear. She came over. She was going to meet Kyle and I in our apartment, and Manny and us talk and kind of read and see if she'd be a good fit. I think like 4 hours and multiple tequila drinks later, we're all cheersing, being like, we're welcome to the family. You're amazing. We're best friends. You're going to do great. And she fit right in. But even Xander, played by Carlo Mendez, was a good friend of ours who we'd known for years. Basically, Kyle had met most of the Rockets, myself included, at one point or another in an acting class, and kind of just been like collecting this group of friends and that we've worked with for many years. So the chemistry was real, but also it was the characters being written with shades of our real personalities that we could slip in there. And the fact that we shot it in Kyle and my apartment at the time where we lived. Obviously, we dressed it for the set, but we'd all hung out there countless times on that very couch. So many shades of realism were definitely woven right on into the characters and the set. It made it that much easier.
Yeah, and there's so many great little character moments as well where it just all works character wise, and you all work together. And what's great as well, once again, it's a testament to the writing, is that nothing feels like lumped together. Everything feels like every character has a purpose in the movie, but also what I love about it is the fact that every character has their moment in the movie as well. And once again, it's another thing where you don't feel like you get that as much. Everybody has their own character, everybody is their own person, but everybody has their own sort of moment within the movie as well. Like we have with obviously Javier. I don't want to go into spoilers for the movie for people, but the moment where he does something, risks his own sort of, life, and stuff for something that happens in the movie. And it's, once again, it's a great moment, but it's the impact that delivers, that you feel, but you wouldn't feel anything for these characters if they weren't written well, if they weren't performed well. So once again, it's a testament to once again what you guys wrote, what you created, how you performed it, because it really, really is a big highlight of the movie for me. So yeah, that works really well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that means the world, and I know exactly. I don't want to spoil anything, but that's one of my favorite scenes, and getting to shoot that scene, that was like one of the most fun scenes to shoot. And I remember distinctly as he's delivering that line, I was standing there with him, and he goes through it, and I'm like, all right, that's great. I was like, give me more, give me more, give me more. And he just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger with it. And I think like the second to last one is the one we ended up using in the film. And he just hit that perfect tenor where it was like, it had the bravery with that subtle layer of terror, but like the voice is kind of quivering, but is not like totally quivering, but like, it's like that false bravado you get when you are, in that position. Like, what you're doing is extremely dangerous, but you've got to do it because you got to save these people. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. And what, as I said, what's great is that every aspect of those sort of moments with those characters, it just comes across so well in the movie. So I love seeing that, because once again, it means that you're not watching something that's just put together. You're watching something where people are truly trying to create something, and something that they, that they can be proud of, and something that they want people to see and hope people enjoy. There's so much out there that is just point and shoot, and it is what it is, and it comes out to be what it is. But it's about getting the right people to play the right characters, and the right people, getting the right people to play the right people, and that's it, and that really shows in the movie. One of the things that I did want to ask is the practical effects. So what I liked about this movie is that obviously, it goes, a lot of the cosplay and stuff, and the story about the characters. But what I really liked is that when it went to the horror moments, it did go heavy on the horror, and I really liked that. Like, it felt like every time it went to the horror moments, it was like a tonal shift in the movie. Was that like something that you purposely wanted to do, and was it something that like there was a lot of practical effects involved, where you like, I want to make this bit like a proper horror?
Yeah, I want it. So the key, in terms of genre specifics, I was really trying to turn, this is basically my version of an anime. So
Right, okay,
in my favorite type of anime, my favorite type of movie, like my favorite type of story is usually a genre bending kind of thing. Like think Thing, right? For example, right? It is a sci-fi movie. It's a horror movie. You have this awesome cast of characters. It's kind of like an actor's movie, right? Because it's so much psychological horror, but you've also got like this crazy body horror and these awesome practical effects, where it's like this mashup of so many elements. Yeah. And so for ZombieCon, that was like what I was trying to do, and my inspiration was anime from a perspective of, this is like your opening arc chapter of an anime. So yes, introducing you to the world, letting you know this world does have, like, the stakes are high, which was kind of the transition into the really kind of abrasive horror versus the kind of jovial, friendship banter, and just trying to morph those together. But that was all a specific choice. In terms of practical effects, we had a fantastic makeup artist. His name is Joseph Drabesco, and he, we should have not been able to afford him for what we did, but I did a movie with him in New York that I was starring in called Heart Boulevard, like the month before we started shooting. And I at that time, I had a thing about, like, I was growing my hair out, and I was like, I want it to be long. And the shoot for that movie, which is another low budget film, was broken over the course of 6 months or something. And I had gotten fired, and then because they wanted to recast it with someone who's got a higher profile, but then the director was like, they couldn't get that guy, so they brought me back. So I was probably a little bit salty, which, doesn't help. I mean, I was a kid at the time. I've learned, like, now that's just part of the business. But I was like, I don't want to cut my hair. I'm growing it out. Like, I've never had long hair prior to that, so I was like growing it down to my shoulders. And Joe was brought on board chiefly to hide my hair throughout, like, the rest of the shooting, because it was going to be cut between what we already shot. And so we spent a lot of time together just talking about our love of movies and special effects. And he pulls out, like, his phone, and he's showing me all these full makeup effects that he had done, like an alien, zombies, like horror creatures. And I was like, I'm about to shoot a zombie movie, like, in LA. Like, I know it's kind of weird, but would you, can I pay you to come out, and, like, you'd have to sleep on our couch and, like, crash with us in the house, because I don't have money for a hotel and stuff, but I'll cover your food. We'll pay you, a reasonable price for your time and services. And if you're down, and before I could even finish, he's like, I'm in. He's like, he didn't even want to see the script. He's like, we were just getting along so great. I think that he was like, this is a cool guy. Like, oh, sounds good. Yeah. So he jumped on board, and he went to the nines with it. Like, for all the zombie prosthetics, those are all totally original for the film. He flew out to LA with these custom molds that he had created in New York, and was showing me, because I talked to him about, like, the boils that I wanted and whatever. And he had created designs for the entire movie where they were going to evolve. He's like, okay, so these are the first stage zombies. these are like how the boils burst, like you're talking about at the end of the film. And I like didn't expect that. Like I thought we'd be going to like Party City and buying, liquid latex and,
Yeah.
putting it on faces and scratching it up. And he brought a level of like just high end, movie production to the practical effects. The blood spray, which we couldn't afford squibs or any kind of air compressor. So he found like a really lo-fi solution for that, which I think turned out great, which was a weed sprayer. That was $20 off Amazon, just a hand pump weed sprayer.
Yeah.
And he got he did his special blood solution where it was like a thinner blood and it allowed it to flow through the tube smoothly. And he was just going wild with that thing.
Yeah. What's great about you saying that is that literally for the film that I'm working on, I literally in the process of going to buy a weed sprayer because of the effect that you can get with it. But yeah, the effects in it are fantastic. And what's great about hearing that is the amount of effort that he took into it. One, it shows in the movie, which is great. So he can look at it and go, yeah, I did that and it's great. But also it goes to show that he's somebody who truly obviously loves practical effects. He loves his craft because the amount of work then he did for you as well. So once again, it's like a thing that helps you, because it means that you get, like you said, you get like a higher quality practical effects, and it means that your film looks better because of it. And people, once again, like me, I would have never thought that the movie that you made in a full feature film was $60,000, for what you did in the movie. In every aspect, it means that you just like sort of ticked all the boxes in the right way. So once again, it's great that you did it, and having somebody that obviously loves what they do goes to show in the movie. And that's once again an incredible part of like the creative process where you're like, oh, okay, I've got somebody who's got my back on this, and that's a good thing to have. So that's pretty much like all the questions about the movie, because I don't want to keep you much longer. What is the couple more things is what's your goal going forward? Are you looking at a sequel? Is it like, I'm done with that, so let's try a new movie?
So I've got actually volume 2, 3, 4, and 5 written already, and I've mapped out the story to volume 10, and there are volume 2 takes place after a 10-year time gap, and I have ambitions of doing like an anime that covers that 10-year time gap and how our characters got there. I think that we would have been very hesitant to say we're going to go forward with any of that. I thought when I first wrote them, it was kind of like I wanted to see these stories put on paper because they were stuck in my head. Yeah. And I had to exorcise the demons. Yeah. But we've gotten so much positive feedback and like an overwhelming response from the first one that we're currently planning to push to volume 2 next year. The main cast is already signed up. Like they're all committed. If we're able to get the budget to make it, they're all totally on board. And we've amassed a lot of equipment in the interim just from doing other odd jobs and stuff. So we might even just go at it ourselves again with a super low budget. And, this time maybe just max out all the credit cards and see what we could do. But we'll start kind of shopping that around, and we're kind of already in the process of pre-production on that. In regards to other films, we've got a slate of 3 films that we're also shopping around that are different genres. Some are kind of quirky horror comedies. Some are kind of more, bucket films. So like a Christmas romance movie, stuff that could be shot, again, lower budgeted stuff. But that will be able to, both raise our profile and hopefully turn a little bit of a profit so that we can reinvest it into, whatever the next film is and, really build out the ZombieCon universe while still making movies. I'm not against taking a different type of job to get the bills paid to cover us to get to that point. Yeah. But, there are a lot of things out there. There are some things I can't talk about that I really would like to talk about. But things are all, and the short answer is volume 2 will be coming. We're just not sure if we're going to have, the 1,000 zombie, besieging the town type thing, or the creative
Yeah,
look
yeah,
of 1,000 zombies besieging the town type of thing.
yeah,
So we'll let you know as more things kind of fall into place. But
absolutely.
kind of learned from our past where, until the money clears, you just assume it's basically not there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like it's not a go until you can go.
Yeah.
And the good thing is that along the way, for what you've already created, and then what you continue to do, making movies at whatever level, and at whatever department of the movie, and wherever you're doing on the set, it's just a constant learning process, and it's a constant, and it's one thing that you just get better and better at, like it's not as if you get worse at it. You start like learning things, and you go, oh wow, like this is why somebody stands here rather than there. This is why we do this rather than that, and you're learning and learning. So, I from what I saw with this movie, I'm very much looking forward to what comes next, because as once again, with my filmmaker brain, I can see the amount of work that went into it, but I can also see, like the talent that goes into it in regards to going, okay, like this person and these people, this crew are really working hard to ensure that the different aspects, I say this on the show, like a big part of what Let's Talk Horror is, like on the podcast and on the videos, is my, the filmmaking and the acting side of it, and how I can give that sort of like different look at these movies, rather than going, this is a movie and it's good or bad. What my brain does, it separates everything. So it's separating the performance, it's separating the cinematography, it's separating the sound, and it does it for every movie. And then sometimes the movies are absolutely shit, and that's why. But sometimes, you get the movies that are great, and you get movies that you really enjoy, because when you separate all those moments, you can see that they're working on every part of this structure to make, whatever comes together at the end of it, they go, oh, okay, like at least we've done what we can to work towards the end goal, which is making an enjoyable movie, rather than just pointing and shooting and then going, that's the movie. So if any of that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention. I was getting. She's pointing at me over there. We did film a super low budget horror movie before our daughter was born. As you could probably see over the course of this interview, life has become more complicated since she was born. But right as we moved across the country, we're like, we've still got the equipment from ZombieCon, and I was like, well, we can use it. We can make one more movie, in Atlanta. It could be like a really, low budget kind of can film, one location, mental horror thing. And so we did film it. And I think our total budget on that was it was below $10,000. And that really just came down to props and, a couple new pieces of equipment, because things have changed, and lights and stuff, and food mainly for the 4 people that worked on the film.
Yeah, you got to feed them.
Oh, you got to. It's number one thing for all independent films. A crew, will break their backs for you. Just make sure you feed them well.
Yeah.
And if you're going to invest in one thing, good food and lots of it. It's,
yeah, we all get,
an army
we all get
march,
sad if we have
doesn't march on an empty belly or something like that.
Yeah, we all get sad if we get a rubbish pizza over a good pizza.
That's right.
So yeah,
spring for the extra couple bucks.
Absolutely.
That's right.
It's the same with the podcast as well. It's like I always try and do what I can to treat my guests right. Like when I'm editing, I'm always making sure that I'm not just thinking about what I'm saying and all that sort of stuff. It's about thinking what they're saying as well. And if you treat people right, they're always going to keep, enjoying what you do and keep coming back to you and stuff like that. So, and obviously on a film set, that's a lot more important than obviously a podcast, but yeah.
Well, by all means, you can 100% use glamour whatever their filters for me.
Yeah. That's it.
I won't say anything.
That's it. Well, I promise I won't put like any diamonds or anything like that on you.
I mean, that'd be very anime,
It would be,
yeah.
I'll do some like I'll put us all in Sailor Moon costumes or something like that.
There you go. Wait, I'll get the transformation scene here. She throws her hand up.
That's it. So the last question before I go into some very quick fire questions. The last question I've got is that what is one piece of advice? It can just be one word, it can just be anything. But what is one piece of advice that you would give anybody that's watching this who wants to, continue to create movies, or like, on a slightly bigger level than what they do? Or if they haven't created movies but really want to, what's the one piece of advice that you would sort of give to people to sort of inspire them to go, like, do it?
Well, my first piece of advice is kind of just your last two words there. Do it.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to do it, do it. You'll find no end of excuses for why you shouldn't do something. And I know we were talking previously about, perfecting something, etc. Especially in the beginning, right? Just do it, because assume you're going to make mistakes, because everyone, put it this way. If it was possible to make a perfect movie just because you made a good movie, if these big Hollywood people with hundreds of millions of dollars, right, then every time they make a movie should be perfect. So obviously, even the people getting paid the huge dollar amounts with all the tools in the world can make mistakes. You're definitely going to make mistakes too. Roll with the punches and lean into that as a learning experience. Again, like what we were talking about, every single part of your journey as a filmmaker is going to be rife with difficulties, but also a wealth of information and knowledge. And you will learn so much faster.
And I gotta say, thank you so much for having. I'm gonna take her. She's past her prime.
I'm sorry,
but
I feel really bad.
Not at all.
See, she cheaped out on the pizza for the crew.
Yes, I did.
See, she should have got the more expensive pizza.
Don't worry, I got the good milk. What I would say, to echo what Kyle said, though, is it's never perfect timing. You'll have all the excuses in the world not to. Just go ahead and start. Yes. Okay. We're going. Thank you so much again. I'm gonna leave Kyle. Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Come here, baby.
Careful.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, the thing is that, and one thing to learn, and like, you're exactly right. You've just got to do it, because people like myself, and as I said, I am a perfectionist, because like I said, like, everything is up here to the way that the shots look, the way, like, even to like the way the color grading, everything like that is like always up here. But the harsh reality is that what always up here is what our form of perfection. The harsh reality is that more than likely you're never going to get it, especially if you're creating movies like I would do, and like yourself, you could just pick up a camera and you can create something with no budget. Anybody can do that. But we have these visions in our head of how we want it to be. And the harsh reality is that without that funding, without that money, without being your big time directors, it's not going to happen. And the hardest part is getting over that. But the exciting part is, by doing it, it is learning, it is creating, and then you start getting better and better. And then those things that you want to do, that you in your head that you think, I can't ever actually do this, you start understanding there are ways that you can do those sort of things. And the creativity side of it is so integral to filmmaking, and to just go and do it, and to be creative and make something. And if it doesn't turn out how you want it, sometimes it's okay, because other people will still go, will let you know if they love it. And then you're like, oh, okay. Like with ZombieCon as well, the amount of people that have come to you and been so positive about it, it makes you then, it's almost reaffirming to go, oh, okay. Like, even though there might be things that I don't like about it, or it didn't turn out how I wanted it to, it's still connecting to people. And then it means, oh, okay, well, I am on the right journey, the right path. And that's that. So that's why, like you say, just doing it is so important to no budget to low budget filmmaking. That's like, it's just doing it, get over yourself sometimes, which is something I have to do. You have to get over yourself and just do it, and then learn.
And I would say another just piece of technical advice for low budget to no budget filmmaking. You'll see all these behind the scenes documentaries, and even from indie sets, like you'll see big crews, big lighting setups, lighting rigs. The easiest way to slash a budget and still get a really good look, use practical lighting to the best of your ability. You know, you may have this inkling, like if I don't have like a big light somewhere, you know, with a reflector or something, I'm not doing, you know, making a movie. 100% not true. Like Alien, one of, you know, Ridley Scott's best movies, I think all shot with basically practically built-in lighting for the most part. Uh, and that was obviously a purpose-built set on a big budget, but that I just use that as an example. But even like in your house, you can go and make sure that, you know, all the voltage requirements are met on the lamps you're using and stuff. Like, don't just like, oh, get the biggest bulb and, you know, whatever your version of Home Depot is, and shove it in there, and you know it blows up. You know, make sure you're checking all the voltage requirements and make sure that you're powered correctly. But you know, using slightly more powerful lights for those things with the cameras, digital cameras that are now available at a low cost, like we was talking about an iPhone or like a red Komodo that you could rent for pretty cheap for a weekend with a very fast lens. So you don't need all that extra light dumping into the frame.
Yeah.
You can get some amazing results. And with practical lighting, the great thing is you don't need a lot of grips. You really don't even need any grips because now you don't need to move C-stands around. You don't need to move lighting setups around. You're not trying to move things out of the shot. It allows you to shoot in a 360-degree fashion as long as the rest of your equipment is put away, and it reduces the cost of everything. So the more things you can do, reel for reel, are going to drastically reduce the needs that you'll have, and that will drastically reduce the money that you'll need to get all of it made. Like if you're a director out there and you're trying to do something with a no budget, especially in your first couple projects, you don't need a whole crew. You know, grab the camera yourself, you know, direct the action yourself, move a light yourself. Like, don't be afraid to basically be, you know, a commando type, you know, what is it? What is your version of the Navy SEALs? You guys have like the
We've got
Royal
like
Marines,
the Army, the Marines, and all that sort of stuff. We got the Royal Navy, all that sort of stuff.
Royal Navy. Okay, yeah. So like whatever the special forces is, like don't be like that's kind of as an indie guerrilla filmmaker, you've got to become that.
Yeah.
Like the guy who's going to get dropped off in the middle of the jungle, or the person who'll get dropped off in the middle of the jungle and is going to be able to survive on roots and bugs while you carry out your mission. It's not going to be glamorous. It's going to be much more difficult than anyone else. You're not going to get a director's chair with your name on it. It's just going to be you, a camera, your friends that hopefully you've gotten to act in your film, you know, a gallon of, you know, cheap staged blood you got off Amazon, and just go to town with it.
The amount of syrup that I've got in my cupboard of like to create fake blood, like, you know, cut food coloring, syrup, everything like that, like just to make the cheapest food, like blood, fake blood, you know. So yeah, but I love the fact that you mentioned about lighting as well, because that is once again one of my things that I always say to people. You know, it's like the reason why I have, you know, the shadow on one side of my face here, you know, to add that extra sort of depth of that lighting. You know, lighting is so integral to low budget and no budget filmmaking, because not only is it integral to give that sort of more of a film look, you know, and that's more cinematic look that will add that extra sort of value look to your movie and make it look bigger budget than what it is. But also, it's a big indication in regards to obviously how you're supposed to make people feel during the scene. You know, if you've got a big bright light shining on someone and they're scared or something's in the background, it's not very scary. But if you start using the lighting right and use the shadows correctly, and you light what you need to and you don't, you know, that's why lighting is so important as well. So you're exactly right with lighting. With practical lighting, you know, you can go on bloody Temu and buy some of these like lights, battery lights that you charge, you know, and they cost like hardly anything. You can get all these sort of lights very cheap, but the impact that they will give you in regards to how the movie looks and in regards to telling the story is so important. And luckily we live in an age now where we can just do that. You know, it's great that the accessibility to do these things for anybody now. We're at that point now, you know, and it's only going to get better. You know, when we were younger, we didn't have this, so especially if you're a filmmaker that's in the business, of course you've got these things, but when I made my first short movie, I had to take out a loan to buy a camera, and that camera was sort of like the cheapest half decent camera I could get. The lighting, I was using a lot of natural light because I didn't have the money to go and buy stuff. So it was like, I've got to make sure I shoot it at this time because I get the lighting right and it makes the shot look really good. And, so you're exactly right. The process, there's so much that goes into the process for creating movies, and it's really enjoyable, but it's really, really tough. But YouTube and things like that are really, really so useful now. Like I'm so grateful to things like tutorials on YouTube for showing me like the equipment that you can get a lot cheaper, or the way you can do this and the way you can do that to give you a better looking movie. And sometimes it's just down to like you're saying, the lighting, little things like that. So it's pretty wild.
And I would say, just in terms of the lighting, one more tool in, the low budget indie filmmaker toolbox is DaVinci Resolve. And I'm pretty sure this happens on light. I've had the studio edition for a long time, so I don't know. But I'm pretty sure on light you can relight a scene, right? Now they have the ability to I don't know what it does internally, but you can choose a subject and you can drop an artificial light into that environment, and it will light it appropriately for the contours of the face or body.
That's wild,
which
isn't it?
Allow you to make up for little mistakes, or if you want to add that little bit of extra pop to make something look like, you have that, like we're talking about, that vision in your mind. You maybe didn't capture it totally on set. Like, maybe the figure in the background that was supposed to be there is a little bit too obscured. You have a way to correct these things because these post tools are so incredibly powerful that you can do things that, again, previously would have been only possible for like ILM or Weta. And now we all have access to a lot of this stuff, which is so incredibly powerful. And like you said, YouTube, tutorials, all that stuff is free. Just if you find the tutorials helpful, give the guys a thumbs up because it helps them. And it helps them make more stuff, and then we can all learn more stuff together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, always support those people that are creating stuff that you enjoy or you get something from, because, like you say, then it means that they actually get to do the shit that they want to do, which is what everybody wants to do. So quick fire questions, because I always like to add these in right at the end. So your favorite director, that can be somebody that's like, who's your, whether it's just like, this is my favorite director because they make these movies.
I've got James Cameron.
Oh, there we go.
I could go down a laundry list of directors. I'm a huge fan of a ton of them, but if I had to just pick my favorite one, James Cameron, not only because of his filmography, his work ethic, the way he tackled filmmaking, and I'm sure there are other directors that fall into this camp, just my personal fave here. The way he tackled filmmaking and, would learn everyone's job on set to a degree that he could basically coach them through it if he needed to, especially on, the first couple of films he worked on. I think it was more necessary, and then he kind of built a team and probably didn't have to do that as often. But that type of mentality is kind of like that's like the commando filmmaking mentality, where it's like, even if you've got that big chair, you still want to be, in there elbows deep, because at the end of the day, if you are the director, it's going to be your name. If the movie fails or the movie succeeds, they're going to assume it was your fault, or you either did it right, you did it bad, but you're either going to take a lot of the credit or a lot of the blame. And the only way to make sure something is right and the way you want it to be is to know as much as possible about all of those things, to be able to have those intelligent conversations with people, and that way, no one gets, lazy on you, right? Someone who's maybe not doing it for the passion, they're like, well, we can't do this, and you're like, well, yeah, you can, because you could just, relight this here, or re-rig this thing there. So, not trying to throw shade at anyone. This is a totally fake circumstance, but that's like the reason why he's definitely my favorite director. Just the way he tackles filmmaking, is constantly on the cutting edge of technology. Like, go back, with the Xenomorph Queen from Aliens. Obviously the stuff he did in Terminator as well. T2 with like the first basically, CG character
CG, yeah.
on film. Or I guess Abyss really was before that, but then the way he filmed Abyss underwater and having to, create custom dive helmets. I think they created an ROV for the Abyss, or at least started with the Abyss that they used then on Titanic. And I heard in a documentary that it was like beyond what the U.S. Navy's capacity was for like underwater vehicles, like operated vehicles. So they like bought the patent from him, which is like, if you've got the U.S. Armed military being like, we don't have that, we need that. You've done something. You've done something pretty incredible.
Yeah. And all that after getting fired from Piranha 2 or whatever it was like.
And that's right. And that again, right? Like that's the crazy part of indie filmmaking in Hollywood, low budget filmmaking. Fired because the director or the producer wanted to, put their name on it and like throw a bunch of half naked girls, I guess. Again, basing all this off of just documentary stuff, and I could easily be getting this stuff wrong, but I've watched basically every James Cameron documentary, so I'm pretty sure he said all that at one point. But and going through the kind of personal turmoil, am I good? I thought I was doing this right, but I got fired from this job, and ultimately believing in himself enough to like break into the editing room, which I don't think he would say anyone else should do, but is one of those cool kind of Hollywood myth story things where he went above and beyond and he's like, oh, this does work, and figured it out, and obviously his filmography stands up. So, yeah, it worked out. That's for sure.
It worked out.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little bit. So I always like to ask this because obviously horror has been around for so long now. Do you have a favorite decade for horror?
I grew up in the 90s, and that's like when I was like the most when horror affected me the most, right? As you get older and you get into filmmaking, you can appreciate horror more, but nothing hits you like when you're a kid watching horror movies. So I would break the back of the 90s. I would say from 1995 to 2005, like that era, from like a personal going to the movie standpoint. In terms of like what horror films are like my favorite, they're all over the map. But if I had to pick like a 10-year gap of time, where you've got like the Blair Witch Project, Scream, a bunch of, I forget, I think It was like the first version of It came out right in that timeline, or at least that's when I saw it.
Tim Curry one, yeah.
So, I think there was, anyway, there's like a billion movies that came out in that time period. But that, if I had to say like one specific period, that would be it. From the nostalgia in me, the 80s are probably, they're probably the height, because you're getting, I think that's when, right, you get the first Halloween is in the 80s. The first Freddy is in the 80s. First Jason is in the 80s.
So like you got the first Jason, Friday the 13th. You got the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Halloween was 76, I think, or something like that. Yeah, something like that. So,
okay.
but yeah, I always like to go by decades, and the reason being is that like I think why horror is so interesting is because it takes like the decade for it to be something completely different all the time. And what I love about it is like, if you go, so like, for example, for me, like the 70s are the most important iconography wise to horror, because so much was created that ended up becoming the foundations of what went on into the 80s and the 90s and so on. But it's interesting because what, like you're saying, then you get the nostalgia side of it. And like when I was younger, I did grow up watching a lot of the old horror movies. Like, some of the earliest ones I watched were like the 70s and the 80s ones. But as you sort of like, as you grow, horror grows with you. And like you're saying, like I grew up like in the late 80s and 90s as well. And it's so interesting that in 90s horror had no idea what it was and no idea what it was doing. So it was doing everything. So in that space of the decade, like you were saying, like say between like 95 and 2005, you had Scream, then it overdid it, then it went into your Blair Witch projects, then it overdid it, and then they were like, shit, let's do haunted house movies, then it overdid it, and then they started, like, that's when they started doing, like, the reboots and stuff like that. You take
Jason X, and then they had Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah.
They had Jason X, like, where he goes to space.
Yeah,
I remember seeing that in the theaters. That was crazy.
And it's just wild. Like, horror, the 90s horror is one of those things that, like, and early 2000, where it was just like it had no idea what it was, and that's why it's always so interesting if you look at the history of horror in regards to, like, the decades. You've got, like, the 70s, and obviously it was before that, but you only really got to, like, the end of the 60s with, like, Night of the Living Dead, where it really started to transition into becoming like, oh shit, we can make horror like this. So then we moved into the 70s, and they were like, shit, we're making horror like this. So then they moved into the 80s, and obviously 80s was just cocaine dreams, and they made every single movie was like a horror movie, and every horror movie was just like, let's do anything. And then it wore thin and so on. So it's really interesting there. But I like the fact that you had, like, a period of, like, it was like nostalgia, but also the period of, like, where horror was just like, it had no idea what it was, and it just threw everything to say, like, is this gonna work? And some of it did, and then loads of it was shit. But
yeah, no, I agree. But I think that out of that, like, again, that's like a creative chaos, right?
Yeah.
Like the explosion of ideas, like not knowing exactly where it was going. But it gave, I mean, Scream. I haven't talked about Scream a lot on a lot of these interviews, but I keep thinking about it. And I'm like, that was genuinely, at least for me, horrifying as a kid to, like, have, like, I mean, I remember I have vivid memories of, like, just standing next to, like, a glass window in the house, and, like, you're in complete light.
Like, but there? Still, yeah.
Anyone can see me out there. I can't see anything. Anyway, but yeah. So some great ones that came out, but it's so difficult too, because I watched all the 70s and 80s movies in that same time period. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just, as I said, this is why horror is so incredible, because it's just so interesting because of the history and the iconography of it. If you could have anyone in your movie, who would you like to cast?
Oh man, that's such a good question. If you had asked me, 20 years ago, I would have been like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
That would have been the easy answer.
No matter what movie it is, just Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, 100%. It could be a rom-com. It could be, obviously science fiction adventure. It'd be great at that.
But he'd do it. I mean, he's done a fucking movie where he's pregnant, so he's gonna do anything.
I know. He can do anything, yeah. Nowadays, I don't, honestly, there are so many people that I would love to work with. To choose one, because this is such a pie in the sky thing that it's kind of like a modern day, almost like Arnold. I would do a Chris Hemsworth, just because I love Thor. I love that character. I think he seems like a genuine person, someone fun to pal around on set. Is kind of game for anything, but also has pretty good cinematic kind of mindset. From just what I heard him talk about a couple of the later Thor movies and being outspoken about some of the things. And I think that you could really utilize his body type for a lot of, like, awesome kind of action oriented or even horror oriented, like Cabin in the Woods. Like, he's a versatile actor, but he's still got that kind of strong physique that you can, I'm an action guy. Like, you can introduce a lot of that and have him kick some ass, which would be fun.
Yeah,
So.
You're right. He's sort of he's one of those people that he's a bit like Schwarzenegger in a way, where he's sort of like games for sort of anything. I mean, he did another, like, awful Men in Black movie, but like, he is one of those people that's he's sort of pretty well versed, pretty good, well rounded in regards to. So he's one of those people that can has done and can fit quite comfortably into sort of most sort of movies. So yeah, that's a good choice, because you sort of like, he's one of those people in a way, and I don't mean this as to a discredit to him, but he's one of those people where it's almost like what you're going to get, so you can almost work around that. Like it's one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, I sort of know what I can get with that, so I can then work around him that way rather than like it be a struggle because you're like, well, I don't know what this person's going to be like. So, yeah, he would be a good one.
I'd say, and now I'm immediately like, well, what about Daniel Day-Lewis? That would be pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, but then, you know, like that would just be such a difficult process, like of Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's one of those things, like if you've got the budget, then yeah. But if you're working at like a lower budget, for me in my mind, I'm like, oh, just keep the difficult people out the way.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you'd have to. I don't know. Well, I guess you know what. If you're working with Daniel Day-Lewis, he's going full method. You've got a lower budget. You've got to cast him as like the lead actor has got to be like a poor, like a very very like poor person set in a very poor setting.
Yeah.
Because then you assume he's going to go full method. So his crafty is going to be like
he's going to be
right
on
into
the
the
streets
script.
for 6 months.
The only thing that this character eats is canned tuna fish. And so, like,
yeah, exactly.
What was your bill for crafty?
You can imagine super cheap. It, like people like you're walking down the street to go and get a coffee, and there he is on the corner, like begging.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, what are you doing, Daniel? He's just like, our method.
No, it's actually part of his character. You know, his character is all about finding funding in obscure ways for low budget movies.
He'd find a way. And he'd still win an Oscar. And then the last question that I've got is, do you remember? So this is something that I have on the podcast, and it's something that I absolutely love this because. And hopefully you're not going to prove me wrong here, but like it's one of those things where a lot of us, we don't tend to forget our first like introduction into horror. So do you remember your first horror movie memory?
I don't know if this counts because it doesn't. I mean, it could be considered a horror. It may not. And I probably have my next. I know what the one after this would be. But the first rated R movie I saw was I was 12 years old. And it was Aliens, which I know is science fiction action, but it kind of crosses the line with a little bit of horror. So if that counts as horror, then I would say that. In terms of like straight up horror, the first like straight up horror I saw was actually Halloween 2. And I remember because, you know, it wasn't long after I saw Aliens, I saw Halloween 2. And the freaking hot tub scene in the hospital, like with the skin melting off, like, that horrified me about hot baths. For like, I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense because you're making a bath, you're setting the temperature, you're getting in it yourself. No one's holding your head underwater. Like it's a brightly lit, completely controlled environment. But for some irrational like reason, I was terrified of baths for the next like 5 years because of that scene.
Yeah, that's what horror does. It's absolutely wild that like you get like trauma from horror, but yet you can't stop going back. And that's like this is why, like I said, this is why like horror is so interesting, and it's so like there's so much history, but also like how we always has a personal effect on different people. Like that's why I always ask the question as well on whatever I do, because it can be something like where people have watched it and they never watched horror ever again because they were traumatized by it, or like yourself, like you watch something like Halloween 2 and you're like, what the absolute fuck is going on? And then, but then you're like, well, now I want to watch another horror movie, and then I want to watch another horror movie, and it keeps going because you're so like intrigued by it. And like I say this all the time, like horror for me is the most interesting of all the genres because it's not just about what you see on screen, it's about the journey to get to what we see on screen. You know, the evolution of practical effects and stuff is because of horror, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So it's so integral, this genre, to cinema, that's why I truly love talking about it. There we go. Well, I don't want to keep you anymore because you know, you've got your lovely child to get back to, and I've taken too much of your time. So ZombieCon Volume 1, where can people go and watch it? Obviously, I'm in the UK, so I don't know in the UK if it's available anywhere yet. I'm not too sure, but obviously all around the world or wherever. Where's it available at the moment?
So currently it's available in North America and Canada, but we did get great news. I think our sales agent is working with the distributor right now, and I don't think the final long form agreement's been signed, so it's not like 100% yet, but I think it's totally safe to say it's going to be coming to the UK very soon. That was just decided at AFM, so hopefully in the next, we'll let you know whenever it, just between the deliverables and the release date. I don't know what they're going to set or what their timeline is, but we'll let you know as soon as it gets out there. But it's currently available in North America and Canada on VOD. There are DVDs available on Amazon with extended behind-the-scenes features and director's commentary, which was because we were talking about the behind-the-scenes features and stuff, like getting to do my own director's commentary, and I did it with Erin, so it was a filmmaker's commentary.
Yeah, that must be
was
wild.
One of the coolest experiences. Like, I mean, yeah, it is the wildest thing ever. I encourage everyone who's ever made a short film or a feature film, even if it's just for fun or to put it on YouTube, do your own filmmaker's commentary, because you as the filmmaker will get probably a bigger kick out of it than anyone else on the planet. I certainly did. I was an absolute dream come true. So, but that's out there, and all the information's at ZombieCon, VOL1.com, and all the links and all the stuff is up there. And we're at ZombiCon Movie across all of our socials. I think I got all that right. Erin usually says all that stuff. I'm like, oh, that sounds good, what she said. So,
well, I'll do everything I can. Obviously, I'm an absolute idiot with all of this, but I try and do everything I can. So wherever you're watching this, you can look in the description as well, and I'll try and make sure I put all the links and everything so people can find out where to find everything that you've done. But once again, the point of doing this Dissected series is to speak to people like yourself, and I sit here and I get amazed by the conversation that we have with what you managed to create. And once again, this is a full feature film, and this isn't like a short movie or anything. This is a full feature film that you created on such a low budget. And what I love about it is that when you're watching the movie, as I said, it is doing a very good job at almost, like I said, separating every aspect of it and then going, let's make sure that we deliver on those aspects, whether it's the writing, whether it's the performances, and like I said, the chemistry in the performances, and how they aren't one-dimensional. They are their own people within it, and they're living and breathing within this movie, and they feel real. And everything else that goes into the pot to create this movie on such a small budget. You've done a fantastic job. You really did. And I really hope that it's something that propels you further into your career and everybody else's career. I hope that happens, because clearly, making this movie with what you had goes to show that you love it. You can see the love on the screen. And that's what's important to me, when I'm watching things that people have created, where I'm like, okay, these people creating it love it and really truly are trying to create something. That is what is really important to me, and you can see that in this movie. So congratulations, and hopefully more and more people will get to see it soon, and hopefully in the UK, as I said, everyone will get to see it as well soon. And yeah, I thank you very much for coming. I apologize that it's been probably a lot longer than what you wanted it to be.
No. This was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for having us. I'm sorry that my daughter, caused Erin to be out of so much of it, but I had an absolute blast. I know Erin did when she was here, and I just remembered the British Special Forces. I think it's the SAS.
That's right. Yeah. Over here, we call it the super. The problem that I've got is that I always forget it is called the SAS, and I shouldn't, because there was a program. Over in the UK, right? In the UK, they know who I'm talking about, but there's a guy called Ross Kemp, and he used to be in a program called EastEnders. It's like an awful soap, right? I never watched it, but everybody knows who Ross Kemp is, and he's somebody that does these sort of like documentaries, right, where he goes into like infiltrates places, and I'm pretty sure he was either in the army or he thinks he was. But anyway, he was on a program with Ricky Gervais where he kept on referring to himself as a super army soldier rather than the SAS. He kept on referring to himself as a super army soldier. So now with everything, even in the episodes that I do, everything, like anytime I've done something that I like makes me feel a little bit like a man, like a little bit tough, I'm like, yeah, because I'm a super army soldier. So, so yeah, it's a classic sort of thing. But yeah, you're right. It is the SAS, and I should know that, but I can't because Ross Kemp has blinded me because he calls himself a super army soldier. But there we go. But yeah, thank you so much.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it was in Extras. If you get a chance, or anybody out there, watch Extras, which is that Ricky Gervais program where it's only actually good because he gets all these cameos from, like, you know, Ian McKellen and Orlando Bloom and all these people, Daniel Radcliffe, these people you never thought would be hilarious, but yet it's the funniest shit you've ever seen. So yeah, if you can stomach sort of Ricky Gervais comedy, watch Extras because it's hilarious, and you'll see what I mean about Ross Kemp being a super army soldier.
Okay,
absolutely.
Sounds
there
awesome.
we go. But Kyle, thank you. Well, as I said, once again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and obviously thank Erin for me as well. As I said, I'm sorry that it went on for a lot longer.
Oh no, this was a blast. Please don't apologize. This was great.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really much, very much so enjoy it. And I hope that anybody out there that's watching this as well, I hope you enjoy it as well. As I said, this series, these videos, they're not like frequent things that I'm going to do unless I get more people that I actually want to talk to. I say this all the time, but a lot of people, every single week, I get messages from people saying, you know, like, oh, can we do an interview and all that sort of stuff. And quite honestly, I say no pretty much every single time, which is why there's only been 2 episodes of Dissected, because I just, I really have to feel like I'm inspired by something. If I'm going to talk to somebody, I want to feel like I'm going to get something from them, not just for me, but for you as well. And I think, like, speaking to Kyle and Erin and talking about, this movie, I think that it's something that can really help other people out there to go, like, I want to make movies. I don't know how. And this series, hopefully, will give people a little bit more of an insight on a technical level, as well as, a sort of motivation point as well to go, I'm just going to make a fucking movie, and you should. And hopefully people get that from that. But, when will the next one be? I don't know. Maybe I should be better at saying yes to people rather than saying no, thank you. It's very difficult for me. If something looks shit, I don't want to talk to people about if they're making something shit. And luckily, you haven't. So that's why you're on the show. So there we go. And I've also pissed off anybody else that sent me a message ever, because now they're like, oh, he thinks what I've done is shit. But remember, I don't fucking matter. Nobody gives a shit about me or what I think anyway. But that's why people like the show, because if I think it's shit, and that's just the way. Make something better, then I'll talk to you. Simple as that. So there we go. But hopefully, as I said, until next time, hopefully it won't be as long as this one has taken. This has been Dissected, and to everyone else, stay creepy.